It is a rainy Friday. And cold. Cold, rainy Friday. Frainy, cranny Friday. Something. I don't know. A little excited. Got my circuit boards in last night. The Signum 3.0 lives. I, of course, immediately wanted to go put it together. And when I went down to my workshop, I was like, I don't have enough switches. And I think I remembered later. Yeah, I remembered later that I had, I believe, last time I counted on that, what was that? That early morning hand wiring stream. I said it was, that's right. I had enough for 1/2 of a let's split in blue and 1/2 of a let's split in black. So I was gonna make the let's split half blue, half black for some reason. And if I'm gonna make the Signum 3.0, you know, I mean, I can sit there with with probes from a multimeter and test it and make sure that it tests correctly, but what's way more fun to test is to assemble it into an actual keyboard and then test functionality. So that's yeah, so I don't have to assemble. That would be weird because I don't have the appropriate switches for it. Although, yeah, I can put together like an example. I think 5 PCB mount. Anyways, I was gonna decide to deconstruct my Signum 3 prototype with the lovely thumb hole that I've been using. So desolder that. And I realized I didn't even have any microcontrollers after the customs I built. I'm all out of microcontrollers. So I'm like, huh, I can do this. I have also, by the way, desoldered one I think it was a Pro Micro. One microprocessor from its header pins. I've done that once. I do not ever wish to repeat it, but I might be doing exactly that coming up here. Because it's the Signum 3.0! I really can't wait to try it out. I also want to make a GIF animation. I don't know if I'm going to do high quality or not, of the switches set in the columns, and then one switch column pops up, like steps up and then steps down, and then they all kind of do the wave. Just using stop motion. That'll be fun. And that should cover, should visually be able to, or should be able to visually represent all of the possibilities in a 2-second GIF. And yes, I know it's spelled GIF. The creator of the format said it's pronounced GIF. So I don't like it either. Okay? But we're gonna deal with reality as it is. GIF. It still leaves a bad taste in your mouth. I added a little bit of salt to my butter coffee. High quality. Good stuff. Yeah, so my excitement to get the Signum 3.0 built and make that lovely set of lovely animation lovely animation and test it and, you know, get all this stuff going, get it up for sale. My excitement at that is tempered somewhat by the fact that I'm gonna have to desolder the other one, which is not gonna be fun, but hey, not a lot of this stuff is fun. You you work through the unfun stuff to get to the fun stuff. I'm not even sure if those switches, yeah, no. It should be PCB mount. I have to double check that. Oh, I did have this idea for making like a, I don't know what I would call it. I've been thinking about making a case for it and trying to figure out a way to make a case for it. But I just like wanted to put wood on it. And then I was thinking if I could like attach a small cutout to a little disused corner of it, just as like a little bit of mixed media. My first thought was to glue it in place there because it wouldn't, you know, it wouldn't receive a lot of contact or friction or anything. But then I thought it should have like heavy duty industrial screws that look really sweet. Just something that contributes to the aesthetics. It'd be pretty neat. It's something you can hold on to. It feels a bit thicker, I guess, than just a circuit board. The whole thing's light. It's almost too light. And it's flat, and it's almost too flat. I did wind up buying a full roll of, I forget what they call it. It's like tool matting, the shelf matting stuff. And there's a local laser cutter that might be able to get me quality cuts of it. That way I'm not like hand cutting out this matting that's going to fit on the back of the circuit board. I'm trying to clojure some clojure. And it's weird. It's a project I've been thinking about and kind of working on for a while. And I've been working on it in Python, but without really a good way to interface with it. Like my favorite way to run Python is through an interactive shell where I'm just, I hate saying REPL, but it's all, people keep saying REPL is the right term for it. It's not, you know, it's a short term and it's fast and it gets the point across. It's just like, people are like, have you tried this REPL thing? It's amazing. It's like, yeah, it's called testing your code as you go so you don't screw it up, instead of writing a whole bunch and then running it all and then troubleshooting each individual. Yeah, I never coded like that. That sucked. Yeah, don't code like that. It's very disheartening. Well, I've said before that I'm susceptible to being overwhelmed, or feeling overwhelmed, even when what I'm dealing with is, you know, not that overwhelming. Yeah, I never coded like that. Right, yeah. So putting that together and I've been putting it together slightly in Python, just kind of laying the groundwork and setting up the architecture for it. And it's all been object-based, which is cool because it's a game and it's easy to track objects and manage them by classes and move their, I think they're called references, basically pointers around, because in Python you don't make copies of items when you move them, which is pretty cool. You're just copying the reference. So you can maintain one item, one object, and just send out references to various places. It's very easy to handle stuff like that. Especially when you have something like a ship that's its own object and has its own containers, cargo bay, let's say, and the cargo bay holds containers, and those containers are unique. It's not storing, you know, 1 unit of this and 1 unit of that. It's not an inventoried item. It is a complete object that is being passed around, or the reference is being passed around, which is pretty neat. But right, so the way I like to do it is do a REPL, and to REPL all that stuff up, you have a running server or running service, and you just, you know, run the main, get your output, and then see what things look like. And I was doing like ticks, so the tick would update, you know, all the game objects and anything that has the ability to be updated, process movement, stuff like that. And then I would just be like tick, 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 check on things, tick, 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 check on things. But this is fun. It's going to be an online service or game, and you're not going to be able to cheat. I swear, you're not going to be able to cheat. I'm going to be very overprotective of that stuff. But it'll be free to play, and it'll be somewhat difficult, and it's going to be a like an ongoing kind of game thing, where you send your ship out to do a thing, and I keep having to simplify it because I keep complicating it. So I'm just going to keep it simple here. You send your ship out, and it takes real world hours to get there. And while that's happening, the systems that you're passing through are experiencing changes, you know, increased pirate influence, increased law influence, that kind of stuff. Things are happening in the world, and they're being reported, likely through like a Twitter bot or something like that, or maybe an RSS feed's probably a better idea. But I like the idea of a fictional organization in a game tweeting updates to the game state. You know, pirates spotted in Sector 4. And you're like, alright, is my ship flying through Sector 4? Yes it is. And you pop in there and you're like, alright, let's plot a new path. We're going around Sector 4. Or, you know, famine hits Alpha 2. Oh, famine. So they need a lot of food. So the price of food goes up. And you're like, well, I'm kind of near Alpha 2, and I kind of have some food. Let's go sell there. I like that idea, how things are kind of keep up with the world, keep on your toes. There's also the prospect of finding interesting signals that you can explore. So if your ship is, this is where it gets a little, don't quote me on all this, but the original plan was that your ship is piloted by people that are designed to match your intent, your style, I guess, play style. So if you have an adventurous captain and he gets a signal, he's going to go check it out. If you have a very by-the-books captain and he gets a signal, he's going to report it and move on and continue with the mission. But always, if you are in the console, you'll get an opportunity to say, hey, to interject. They'll say, hey, Commander, this is what's going on. What do you want to do? And if they don't hear back from you, they'll make a decision on their own. I don't want to say the game almost, it can play itself, I guess. That's what's kind of interesting, is that if you set things up correctly and plan out your team and set up your ship correctly, you can queue actions and then let them just go. But I think the most profitable thing is probably going to be to continually interface with the ship. Or the most correct thing. Because if you're hauling illegal goods and there's an increased police presence, you're in a sector you're going through, you're more likely to be scanned and then have problems. I don't know why. This is all this thing. REPLs. Closure. So, Python can't serve as a web server. I'm not, well, it wouldn't technically be a web server, but whatever. It can't serve as a game server that's constantly ticking and updating things, and also handling requests that come in and processing updates and sending things back to users. It can't do all that and receive manual interface at the same time. There are a few kind of hacky ways to do it, and I considered them. I might still consider them. They just leave me with a bad feeling. But I've been enamored with the concept of a Lisp machine for a little bit. And the idea that you have a full environment of full objects that you can modify and tweak and update as you go. And, you know, the concept of having a running game, or having a running program, project, whatever. And then instead of, okay, let's bring everything to a full stop, and we'll bring it all down, and then we'll make the change, and we'll start it up again, and we'll test it, or having separate environments, and testing there, without real-world data. It always seemed like it made more sense to me to be able to take a function and be like, alright, function, how about you do this now? And then you just update it. I'm not quite sure how you would get the text of functions out, but the idea that you have a Lisp machine that has all this stuff and it's all updated in real time, running constantly, is just, it's awesome. So it should have come as no surprise when I found out that Clojure offers a runtime that can accept connections for REPLs. So I can have something that's running live in the background that's processing things, inputs and outputs, and updating things. And oh, by the way, if you connect to it, you can query the memory space real time, or query or modify the memory space real time, which is pretty neat. And you can only do that because it's functional. And because it's functional and immutable, or focuses on being immutable, I was like, okay, this fits perfectly. And I'm like, alright, so how do I object in functional programming? I was like, wait a minute. Am I retarded? So you can't, objects are mutable and track differently than something that would be functional. I'm still grokking all this, but it's like the opposite of object-oriented, and it's very strange to think about and to wrap my head around. I think the only alternative I would have for making something like this would be making the game in Emacs, which would be pretty easy. Comparatively pretty easy. It would handle a lot of things for me, but it would be in Emacs. And I understand Emacs, and other people understand Emacs, but it is not accessible. The ability to design this server such that I can tweak it and mess around with stuff, and then it still maintains everything going on. Once the server and all the functions are defined, everything else is just a client. And when everything else is just a client, write your own. It'll have, I don't want to say a REST API, but basically, it'll have a standardized API, it'll JSON back and forth. The idea is that you would be able to, someone else could build a client for it if they wanted. And then that opens the potential for, Android client, an iPhone client, it doesn't matter. Once the server is ready, an Emacs client. Once the server is ready, the server's ready. That's it. You get what you get. It'll send the data back and forth, and the client will follow. Or so I think. So yeah, functional programming, very strange. Immutable systems, also very strange. All right, this is a very strange message.